Welcome to our Q&A number 12. So we have questions today about back pain, sway back posture, and hip rotation. So when the hip doesn't want to open to sit cross-legged. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So question number 1, I've been experiencing low back pain and tightness when I do exercises like squats and deadlifts. Picking up my kids also causes problems some days. I don't seem to be able to feel them in my glutes like I think I should. I cannot figure out what I'm doing wrong, but the low back pain issues are really starting to bug me. Absolutely. So pain is terrible, and having to experience pain on a regular basis definitely should bug you. So nobody should have to be living through that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what causes those aches and pains when you bend forward. I often find this stems out of the hip hinge going maybe a little bit wrong, so you complain about it happening with squats and lunges. All right, so I want you to think about your pelvis as a bowl. So if you imagine my hands right now supporting or holding that bowl, okay? So imagine you have a bowl. If you tip it too much one way and kind of change that bowl angle, then it's gonna spill out the contents, all right? And so think about that as your abs and your back holding guide wires, holding your pelvis in a great position. Now, when your back tends to overwork, it spills your bowl forward, okay? And so when we tend to have back pain and tightness after hip hinging exercises like squats and lunges, that tells me usually that the back is overworking for the exercise, and the abs kind of aren't showing up for the amount they're supposed to do. Now, some of that can be abdominal strength, but it can also be tightness in those deep hip rotators. So if I've got maybe tightness in my piriformis or obturators, then that's gonna kind of squeeze and shove me forward. So when I try to hip hinge, my glutes aren't gonna wanna lengthen, those deep hip rotators aren't gonna wanna lengthen to allow the femur to move back. And so then what's the only other thing that can happen? You either round and hunch, which may hurt your back in another way, or you use your back muscles to hyperextend your back, tensing your back when you come forward. So do this for me. Put a hand in the front and a hand in the back, and I want you to pretend that you have that bowl, and I want you to think about that bowl not changing or moving. So go ahead and do your hip hinge, supporting that bowl. And what I want you to do is come down for your hip hinge and spill your bowl forward. So you feel what that feels like, and then come down for your hip hinge and spill your bowl back. So try it both ways, where you feel that spilling forward, you feel that spilling back, and then you can feel that more neutral where your bowl doesn't change, and you can feel the bowl change relative to the structures above it, okay? So you're feeling for that change or that tipping. So when I go for my hip hinge, my bowl shouldn't spill or change either way. So give that a shot and see if that doesn't help you with your back pain. The other thing I'm going to recommend is get a great exercise program. So let's get you stronger, right? So let's get those glute max stronger without all that tension and that inability to eccentrically lengthen to be able to hinge back. Let's get your abs a lot stronger. All right, let's get your breathing system loosening those back muscles so that it feels a lot better. All right, so I would look at just retraining the movement, but then I would also look at, okay, how can I get stronger to support the movement? And those are my first go-to suggestions for this issue. Okay, question number 2. Is there anything I can do about sway back posture? All right, so sway back posture, typically it looks like this. So hips kind of tuck and move forward, excessive kyphosis, forward head posture, knees will often lock back. So this is a sway back posture. This is a very relaxed, kind of hanging on joints posture, like, oh man, I am a tired mom at the park, and you better believe I have stood at a park like this before, because I'm like, I just need to hang on everything. The problem with sway back posture is I often tend to see women with a lot of pressure down on their pelvic floor, so they'll be experiencing a lot of pelvic floor heaviness. It can also come with upper shoulder, neck tension and pain because you've got the weight of that head as well. Oftentimes trigger points in through the back and can also happen with, SI joint pain and low back pain and all that good stuff as well. Okay, so what can you do about changing any posture? All right, our muscles control where our joints are. Okay, so when we say we're a certain posture, that just means we're in a certain position, right? I have forward head posture. I have excessive kyphosis. My pelvis is tucked under. My pelvis is spilled forward. So as I change my posture, I use my muscles to change my posture. So whenever someone is thinking about changing their posture, what I want to look at is maybe what muscles are tight and restricting the motion, causing tightness at the joints maybe, holding them in place. So I'm going to want to do some release work on that tightness. It's not always the same for everybody. And then I'm going to want to look at what do I need to strengthen. Okay, so for that sway back posture, I'm going to want to work deep cervical flexors. I'm going to want to work serratus so I can get them out of this posture. I'm going to want to work abdominals. I'm going to want to work glutes to help support good pelvis structure. And I'm going to want to really work arch strength, okay? Because your arches are your foundation. And when people tend to have weak arches and they collapse, let their arches collapse in, their pelvis often collapses forward with those arches. So I'm really going to want to look at what's going on at the feet and the head, because those two things kind of cap the end of your system and help the middle come together. All right, so I'm really going to want to pay attention to what's going on with that foot and arch strength as well. Okay, so yes, there's so much you can do. You are not stuck in a posture. Now, we all have a tendency to have maybe a little bit curvier spines. I have a very curvy spine. So I'm going to have a nice thoracic curve, nice lumbar and cervical because my spine curves a lot, but that is genetics. If you look back through all my family members, they all have very curvy spines. All right, you see some people that have very flat spines. Now, and that can become a problem is when we can't move in and out of those postures, or when we experience pain. So there's no perfect posture, there's no perfect curves. Everybody's a little bit different. All right, but we're looking at being able to move in and out of them and looking at how you feel. If you feel great, then your posture's probably not a problem, okay? So I would also look at it from that angle as well. All right, question number 3. Why are my hips suddenly not able to sit crisscross? After this problem came about, I had TFL issues after running longer miles. Okay, so when we look at what is happening, when you go to sit crisscross, so when you go to sit down and you go to cross your leg, your femur has to move into external rotation. Now, if your femur, come here, stand. All right, if your femur is sitting forward in the socket, so let's say Stan's gonna come up, see if I can get some movement out of him. Oh, he does not want to cross his leg either, that is very still. And he crosses his leg, his femur has to move back in the socket and then has to externally rotate. Now, let's say you have, after all that long run, you have maybe some tightness back here in those deep hip rotators, and that's kind of shoving that femur forward in the socket. So then you go to cross your leg, and your hip is like, whoa, I'm already there. I am already forward in that cross position. And then you try to cross more, and then you end up just getting pinching and tightness. So that is probably one of the common things, and then there are definitely others, but that's probably one of the more common things that I'll notice is that tightness in the back that goes ahead and shoves that femur forward, and then there's just nowhere to go. All right, so I'd work on getting the femur back in the socket. I will add a swipe up to one of my favorite exercises for getting that femur back in the socket. So try that exercise a few times, and then try to cross your legs again and see if it doesn't work like magic for getting your hip to kind of let go and reposition, because we need balance from the muscles in the front and the back and the side and the inside to be able to move the femur freely around in the socket, which includes being able to comfortably cross our legs. All right, so give that exercise a try and see if it doesn't help.